Alexis is joining the chat, so we'll bring him in and we'll do an ad quick ad read. Ad quick is out-of-home advertising made easy and measurable. Say goodbye to the headaches of out-of-home advertising. Only ad quick combines technology, out-of-home expertise, and data to enable efficient, seamless ad buying across the globe. Let's go. Welcome to the stream, Alexis. Thank you for being here.
How you doing, gentlemen? Sorry,
You're all good.
Was running late from the pediatrician. Not for me.
Yeah.
But for my youngest.
Hey.
Of course, we understand. We have kids too.
We're business dads too. Thank you for leading the charge.
That's important. Family first. Always.
I'm sorry. It was a tough one too, because it was one of those immunization days. And I'm the parent who does the pain doctor visits. My wife does the sort of run-of-the-mill normal ones.
That's rough.
Ouch.
Poor Dira.
A lot of hand squeezing.
So should we start with TikTok or Digg?
Yeah, there's a few things to talk about, aren't there?
Yeah. Busy week for you. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we just watched the Digg video announcement, and we have to find out who shot that video for you, because the cinematography was fantastic. The reveal when they pull to the side of the laptop and they reveal your face there, perfect. Storytelling, movie magic. So yeah, break it down. How did this come around? Was this just like a crazy group chat idea that then just got out of control and now you're just doing it?
Gosh, how did it start? I had never spoken to Kevin Rose until like 5 or 6 years ago.
No way.
And when we started talking, we just realized we had so much in common. I learned I had, in all of that animosity and jealousy, a tremendous amount of respect for him that it probably took me a little bit more maturity to appreciate. And we just vibed. And then every now and then he would text me and be like, hey, dude, do you think I should buy Digg.com and resurrect the thing? And I was like, yeah, sure, go for it. Yeah. In the way that one supports a friend thinking about a thing. That seems a little outlandish and a little crazy, but it had gone through a few different owners. And actually, when it was first on sale, I had debated buying it when the company went bankrupt. And I told Kevin this later. I was like, I debated actually buying it and then just redirecting it to Reddit.
Yeah.
It's like this one last FU. But I'm so happy I didn't do that. And then, I don't know, 5 months ago, he was like, dude, I'm going to do it. And I would love to do it with you. And I said, awesome. That sounds like a great idea.
That's amazing.
This sounds like a fantastic idea. And there you go.
Talk about like the actual competitive dynamic between you guys back in the day, because looking at even looking at the video, you guys were clearly battling for cover stories on magazines and things like that.
Well, he was crushing us. It wasn't even in my mind. I thought it was a battle.
Yeah.
And this was a sign of being a first-time CEO and frankly being focused on the wrong things in this regard. But I was so jealous of the fact that he was the Silicon Valley poster child. Remember, we were in the first batch of Y Combinator, which was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, working out of an apartment in Medford and then Somerville. We had raised a total of $72,000 at demo day. And, here was Kevin Rose, who was this tech celebrity who had millions raised from true Silicon Valley VCs and yes, was on the covers of magazines, was getting so much press. And I felt like, I didn't feel like we were getting a fraction of that press and that coverage. And I was very jealous. And again, I think focused on the wrong stuff, but it just felt like he was an easy target. And look, in his defense, he was first. Digg did come first. In our defense, and I have the email to prove it, we did not know about it when we started Reddit. It was about a month into the company. We'd already launched. That we'd finally learned about Digg. So shame on us for not doing enough competitive analysis. But they had about a 7-month, 8-month head start. And what can I say? We won the long run, but now we both get a second chance to do it again.
So what are you envisioning for the product? Have you announced anything, or are you ready to think about what will be different? I mean, I'm sure you don't just want to resurrect it exactly as it was.
Maybe for V1. Let's say, okay, the goal for V1 is just get a thing back online that makes people feel nostalgic for Digg, where it left off. Maybe not version 4, but just before that.
Sure.
And then modernizing some of the obvious stuff.
Yep.
But look, this will not be, the first version that gets out there is not going to be feature complete with some of the big, forum platforms out there, but it's going to hit the nostalgia notes. And then, some of the stuff we've talked about publicly is, and this is what was going on in the chat, which was, technology, it's cliche, but in the last couple of years, we've all had our brains melted by what software can do, and AI in particular, and just even simply some of these foundational large language models are capable of doing some really dope stuff that if you were building a text-based forum software today and you built it from first principles and you said, okay, well, what are the most important parts of this platform for the most valuable users? It's the less than 1% of your user base that's actually doing the heaviest lifting of community management. And so how do you start there by saying, how do we build the best tools using AI so that you don't spend your job being a janitor, having to go through an inbox of wading through things that are violations of community norms or just violations of the terms? And actually, and if you talk to enough of these folks, and Kevin slyly ran ads, polling thousands of them to just say, what are the things you wish you had? What are the things that should exist? And it turns out, even again, using today's technology, you can solve a lot of those problems out the gate so that as, say, a volunteer community manager, you're now spending the bulk of your time not doing janitor work, but actually like doing the fun part of community building, right? Coming up with cool contests, highlighting memes and great submissions from the community. And so that's what I would expect to come pretty quickly.
Do you think
the first version?
Yeah. Do you think that X, killing links, we all kind of understand that it probably makes sense for X as a business, right? But it's disappointing as a user. Is that part of what's creating an opportunity for Digg to come back and potentially thrive?
It's, I had not thought of that. It is so annoying that we all have to put it in the second tweet. But to your point, it does make sense from their standpoint. Look, at the end of the day, if you build a community platform well enough, I'd imagine, at least a majority, more than half of the content that will be talked about will be stuff from the community, right? At Reddit, there were self-posts, and that was just an invention by some random Redditor who guessed how to sort of hack and make self-referential links. But I do think there is an opening, as you mention it. Yeah, there is an opening for like more traditional just link sharing. Like, here is some cool thing on the internet. Go take a look. And you know what? Actually, as I'm thinking about it live, the other wild trend, you've seen this guy Levels who's who's code vibing the flight simulator.
Yeah.
Like, we have not fully processed apps as content.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that might be because, right, how does one get to that app? Well, it's going to have to be a URL, at least for the time being. And so maybe that's the other secular shift we're seeing, is that people are going to be spinning up entire apps as content that will obviously need a place to get to and links.
Yeah. Related to that, obviously beachheads are super important when you're building a platform that can anyone could use it. Reddit now has Reddits for all sorts of different communities. What was the first beachhead for Reddit, and how are you thinking about early beachheads that could be interesting communities for Digg to kind of latch onto early on?
I think the Reddit beachhead was Alexis.
Yeah, it was just you, right?
That's
being
very kind, guys.
It was.
No. I mean, it was. Weren't you like the first 20 users? Like,
yes. All right. Well,
I mean it in both ways, right? You were
in defense of that strategy. It was
It
2005. So you got to understand, we had to convince people that you would want to come here to this site, this Spartan site, and submit a link for other people to vote on. But we didn't have comments, so it wasn't like we were like congratulating one another for our great posts. But yes, the first few months, we had a bunch of alt accounts we were posting under to make it look like there were different people, not just nothing over. That's my username, over and over again, posting links. But then, again, it was also, it's hard to learn lessons from, because back then it was actually novel. And so like the first community needed to be r/programming, because we started it with a bunch of other developers as our early adopters. And then we realized normies would not want to see like an Erlang tutorial on the homepage. So we created those communities as a way just to basically keep the front page looking a little bit more open to everyone. But I think the first beachhead for Digg relaunched ends up being look, I'm 41, almost 42. It's like the old head nostalgia for a vibesy internet. Now, you guys don't know that because you are so young, but for the graybeards, there was a time when the internet was just like a much chiller place. And I think it's the nostalgia for that. So I assume it's going to be a lot of the like older geeks who were, big Digg fans who love, video games and comics and a
Awesome.
few other things that could
Yeah, I
be
like
around
the
here.
idea, this just general idea of the vintage internet, right?
Totally.
There's so much demand for vintage broadly in consumer products, vintage cars, right? Records, etc.
Oh.
Pokemon cards, right?
is
We
that
gotta
a
ask you about
chromatic?
chromatic.
I was just playing
too.
on my chromatic here before.
There we go.
I do actually take this with me everywhere I
It's
go. I
amazing,
appreciate it.
yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense. You know, before we get into TikTok, I wanted to ask you, how would you, if you were in control of X as somebody who built, you know, one of the biggest social, you know, platforms in the world and in Reddit, if you were in control of X, how would you control this sort of dynamic where this quote unquote slop content is what this sort of stated versus revealed preference issue, right? Where on X, people say they want to learn and get informed, but then the videos that actually, you know, get real engagement are, you know, some type of meme or it's JD Vance. How would you approach it? Because I think every X user, given at least our corner of X, we're tech native.
Yeah.
Many people are building similar products. Everybody's got an opinion. What's yours? How would you? Is X perfect in its current state, or do you see ways that that you would improve it?
So full disclosure, I launched it's not a television series, but a content series off season on X in partnership with X.
Oh, yeah.
I probably use, if you looked at my tracking on my apps, I'm sure I use X more than any other social media platform
Yeah.
today.
Totally.
So I am, but why? The best question, right? Why? Because the people and trends that I care most about in our little insular world, like that's where the news is made. That's where, in order to do my job well, that's how I rationalize it to myself. As a builder, as a tech builder, as an investor.
It's work. It's a work app.
I mean, it's work.
Yeah.
No, it's obviously not. But when I'm doom scrolling, I comfort myself saying like, no, actually, this is helping me identify trends and things.
Totally.
And I know that it could be better. And it probably, I think it's more fundamental. And if you could apply this in different ways to, I think Instagram has its version of it, TikTok has its version of it. The algorithm rewards the thing that pushes to extremes because it generates outrage, and people love gaming systems, especially when those systems mean more attention and more money. And so you see it across all these platforms. And some places it's a little bit more benign because YouTube is longer form content. It doesn't feel as aggressive, but there's definitely a flavor of it there.
Yep.
But I think as long as what you're optimizing for is me opening my phone and you as the developer or head of product trying to get me to spend as much time as possible, you're going to eventually end up with some version of the algo feeding you more of the stuff that gets more of the attention and the outrage and the whatever, which just feeds more. I think community platforms have the best shot that I've seen because what you're signing up for there truly is the intent of, I like this community, right? When a community website gets to scale, and I'll never forget, so I started r/gaming. And to this day, the culture of r/gaming is a reflection of me, an old gamer, because what I was talking about r/gaming was more nostalgic even back then in 2005 than what was the new game. And at some point, the gaming community on Reddit said, listen, old man, we want to know about new titles. So we're going to create r/games, which is much more about new releases. And you could see a cultural rift in something that seemed pretty obvious, but or maybe subtle, but to the people in it was really important. So I think if you're subscribing to based on community, you're coming in with a different set of expectations. And so you have a chance to build something that doesn't necessarily lead to can you make a thing that'll piss as many people off as possible, which is what Twitter does so well. And I've got friends who I think kind of make a living shit posting.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible art form. And I have to commend them on it. But it's a symptom. The reason that exists and is so viable is it's a symptom of the platform just rewarding, what gets you to, stay in the app for longer.
Yeah. That makes sense. We got to hear about the TikTok bid. Sure. There needs to be a decision made by April. You're entering the mix. We love to see it. Break down kind of like your guys' angle, what you want to do with the platform post acquisition, and maybe some of the other people involved.
Sure. Well, look, Frank McCourt's the big dog here. He called me up and was like, hey, I'd love to get you involved. And he already had his instincts were around building something on chain, using this and the massive user base of TikTok to, basically overnight, not literally, but overnight bring a bunch of people into this world where they now actually control, like say, their reputation online to a certain extent because they have the sort of currency they've created there with that account and that identity. Um, Look, it seems like I mean, Elon even replied to my tweet saying there are more people bidding on TikTok than not at this point. And I was like, touche. That's right. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I support them all. To be clear, I support them all. I want.
Are you all doing it yet?
I don't care if you have $5.
Yet?
If you have $5 trillion, if you're an American, I support you buying TikTok.
Well, that's exactly, and that was my reply. As long as it ends up outside of the control of the Chinese Communist Party, great, it's a win.
Yeah.
Like obviously, I'd rather us win,
Yeah, of
but
course.
any of those options that's not Chinese controlled is a win. And I've been outspoken about this for years, and it is what it is. But I do think there's something really interesting about, we're at this point where, and look, I've been a day one, seeded Coinbase in 2012, like ETH pre-sale, like I've wanted to believe in a version of this future for a long time. And right now, you've got amazing CEOs like Brian Armstrong who've brought us so far into making it even just a standard and a store of value. And I'm Bitcoin really specifically. But like, can we get to that next point where we have a technology that just sort of underpins a lot of people's lives casually? And again, no one's going to use any of these apps because of the technology. They're going to use it because of what it does for them. And you either spend years building it up and, everyone's got a version of it, everyone's doing it, but nothing's really broken through or come close yet. This is such a fun hack to getting mass adoption for this technology. And that was the thing that was most interesting to me. And, I wouldn't be surprised if it did come to fruition, there's still lots of things to figure out and solve for. But there are enough bright minds who are already in my inbox who are very excited on the crypto front to lend their axes. So look, I again, as long as it ends up in American hands, I'm thrilled. But I'd obviously love for us to take a stab at it and really see what it takes to bring over a bunch of netizens to the on-chain world.
That'd be great. We have 5 minutes. I wanted to know, are there any underrated Reddit communities that you think might be worth taking a little tour into?
Like live?
No, not right now. Just whenever I run into someone,
there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy
this
stuff.
is our kids watch this show.
Yeah.
We
Hopefully, it's a
yours
safe
do
for
too.
work one. But every once in a while, I find a Reddit where, like, I got into 3D rendering, and there was Reddit on the Houdini forum, and it was just like, these people are they're the CGI artists who do the horses on Game of Thrones, and they're just amazing artists, and they just know so much more, right?
Wow.
And I was just like, I need to know everything about this, and I'm getting really up to speed. Even with their memes, I learn through osmosis from that, and I love when I find a little community that I can just be like, oh, I'm not an expert, I'm totally tourist, but I love that stuff. I'm wondering if there's anything that pops up, even if it's just like, nostalgic, like, I don't know. I see you have a microphone there from Teenage Engineering. Anything.
Oh God, I got to remember the URL. digg.com.
Oh yeah. Okay.
One.
There we go.
That one. We'll be on there.
We'll be on there.
I actually have another question for you.
Yeah.
You're like pretty much a pure play consumer internet guy, right? Obviously, in the great history of your investing career, you've invested all over the place, but you seem to be somebody who, when others sort of sour, especially. It almost became a meme of like consumer internet investing is just so hard that a lot of people just give up. It's very obvious now that there's a bunch of, we've seen this with, one of the players that we have in PMF or Die has taken multiple consumer apps to like millions of dollars in revenue in super short period of time. How do you think about, consumer investing now in the age of AI? You're sort of in many ways refounding Digg. But I'm sure you're looking at, hundreds of deals a month, I would imagine, or at least a quarter. What's most exciting to you right now? It feels like the kind of a moment that you'd been waiting for, similar to crypto, but this feels like, obviously the next wave.
Dude, it is. Consumers definitely gotten exciting again. And look, I got weird, right? I think the best, the greatest gift that I've had with my investing track record is having a certain amount of freedom from LPs, and like 10% of our AUM is my own money too, which doesn't hurt. But like, you got to think 2012, 20, the year I left Reddit, one of the first investments I made was in a women's soccer team called Angel City, starting that team up for it cost $1 million to buy a franchise back then. In the same league today, an expansion fee, like literally just the amount paid to start a team, was 110 million. So the valuations have gone up. Angel City is now the most valuable women's professional team in the world at just shy of 300 million. And literally 5 years ago, that was the craziest idea. And I tweeted the entire grand plan and just said, this is an undervalued opportunity. It's venture scalable. Here we go. And so I love being told I'm going to lose all my money and it's crazy. And so I found opportunities, to your point, in consumer that still, turns out the business model of a sports team is actually very similar to Reddit. But with AI, software got exciting again. And shameless plug. The latest one that we just talked about was called Doji. Now, I am clearly not a fashionista, but this team figured out how to make AI avatars. I mean, look at those pants.
Yeah,
figured out how to make AI avatars with just a few reference photos. Yeah. Actually look, I mean, I could never.
Yeah.
But
it's a wild fit.
This is gonna be, and again, it all comes back to user experience, right? We spent a year or two seeing, oh, look at that. Like we blew the Turing test out of the water. We're seeing all these dope bells and whistles applications. And we're just now starting to see what people can do with that tech. And it's gonna be fun. And I think we got through the first wave of like get rich quick apps. No disrespect. Hustle's gonna hustle.
Totally.
No tea, no shade. But we're now getting into what's a consumer app that's not just gonna make you, I don't know, turn into a piece of cake and get cut in half, but what's an app that's gonna make a fun social experience? And it might just be remixes of old things. Digg. I know from another old consumer founder that you might hear another one of these types of stories in the next couple of weeks. Maybe it's South by Southwest. And I think you're going to get to see this rebirth of apps that we all knew that can be demonstrably better now because of this technology. And then we'll see some new stuff like Doji that just like this try-on app. There's a version of that has existed and sucked for decades. And what it took was a few technological breakthroughs and a great user experience, and voila. And so, yeah, it is a great time for consumer. It's a great time for hard tech. I've done a few space tech companies now. I obviously love hardware. Like it has never been more fun to do this job. And again, the world does not need more investors. So if you hear this and think, oh, I want to do that when I grow up, start a company first. It's so much better. You'll be so much cooler. It's better for society. You'll make more money. Like do that. And then come over to the dark side after.
That's great.
Love it.
We see you pop up on paparazzi photos on the world tour. What's the next big event you're excited for? Is there anything on the calendar that you're looking forward to in 2025?
My wife was like, do you want to go to the Vanity Fair party? And I was like, no, of course not. That was the last one I guess I missed out on.
Well, if you have a +2, I mean, we'll tag along.
You gotta marry up, guys. That is the secret. That's how I did it. There's nothing.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. I'll just surprise you. In fact, if it's a true paparazzi photo, I won't even know that it's happening.
Yeah. Well, subscribe to Alamy Stock Photos, and you can see the latest of what Alexis is up to.
Here's a good question. I asked John this yesterday. So Starship, disintegrated last night. It's unfortunate, but obviously they're iterating quickly. How many successful SpaceX, sort of trips to the moon do you need to see before you're going to get on it yourself? John's answer was 3.
Does John have kids?
Yeah, I know. He's got 3.
I have 3 kids and a very high risk house.
You have 3 kids now?
Yeah, 3 kids. I know.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Holy shit. This come a long way from the solid days, man.
I know, man. Yeah. It's wild.
Wow. That's nuts. No,
3
I would
boys.
not do that. Stoke is my horse in that race.
Okay.
As an early investor there, and I love Andy. I love that team.
Yeah.
I'd say the same thing. SpaceX has changed the world. We're all in their debt. They've opened so many doors for humanity, civilization. But I don't need to be in the first million.
Okay.
I have no interest. Not interested. Now, supersonic plane. I told Blake when I sent the wire, I was like, bro, get me a seat on the boom. Let's go. Again, I don't need to be
on the boom.
The first, right? Let the professionals do that. But like, that's way more appealing to me because space. No, Alien and Aliens were my favorite movies as a kid.
Yep.
And so no good comes from space as far as I'm concerned. And that's without even not knowing that xenomorphs don't really exist. No good comes from that. That's why there's a pulse rifle on my wall.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, I mean,
Always stay strapped with the pulse rifle.
Anybody that has a man cave like yours is not in any hurry to leave. It is truly a work of art.
Well, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for joining the stream. We'll have to have you back soon.
You're
This was
always
fantastic.
welcome.
I appreciate it. One more shameless plug.
Yeah.
I want to say, and you guys, you got to keep me honest on this. Was I the first investor to ask if I could invest in this pod?
Yeah, you actually were.
Yeah, you were.
And I think it would have been. I think it would have been 1,000x.
Yeah.
I'm still here, guys. I'm still
No, and
here.
you
Yes.
saw the
Ready.
potential. You knew these guys aren't building a podcast.
Yep.
They're building
Empires.
an empire. The TB.
But we appreciate the support for sure.
You'd be one of our first calls if we ever did.
Yeah.
It is so good. It's so good for the ecosystem. Y'all's vibe is perfect. The branding is on point. Like
Thank you.
10 out of 10. Taste, you've heard enough people say it. It is so true though. Taste in this era is going to be 100 times more valuable as intelligence, thank God, is getting democratized than a commodity. And so it's an amazing time to have great taste. And this is the timing
and
could not be
here's-
better for what you're doing.
Here's our vision for it, since it's very relevant to you. We want to give interesting people that are doing big things all the benefits of having their own big podcast with none of the work, right? Because like you don't want to, you could spend all this time making a podcast and maybe you even put sponsors on it, make $1 million a year. It's not going to change your life. What if you could just come on TBPN anytime you had big news? Because that is what we're setting up. The next time you've got news, I'd love to have you back on, specifically when all the TikTok stuff is getting worked out.
For sure.
Hopefully you win it, but whether or not,
It's great
I know
having you.
you'll have some great points. We got Sam Lesson here. It's a party.
Alexis, what's going on, man?
What's up,
How you
Sam?
doing?
How you doing? I'm
How you
sorry
doing,
I went
buddy?
over. I was gabbing with these guys.
Hey, Sam,
No,
we're
it's
just
fine.
playing.
I was whacking some tennis balls. I was late.
Oh,
But nice,
fantastic.
look, we got the microphones and white hats.
Yes.
You're like,
Yeah.
Dude,
you're my
nailed it.
technology brother.
Dude,
There
you go.
I mean, teenage engineering. That's the best.
The
Amazing.
subtle way to say I paid too much for my microphone.
No, you
there
paid
you
the
go.
exact right amount for quality. For
Exactly.
There you go. There you go.
I'll leave
What's
you
going
guys
on,
to it.
guys?
Alexis, thank
Sam's
you
the
so
man.
much.
Thank
Thanks
you for
a lot.
having me on.
Peace, guy. See you, Alexis.